Okay guys, let's get down to the fun stuff. So from now on, if you want to do it a little bit more professionally, you can open Window Animation Editor's Graph Editor. And it popped up on my other monitor, here it is. So the Graph Editor, this is where the more professional animators are going to be spending all day. And it's a little confusing at first, but if you take the time to get to understand what the curves mean and how they work, it will benefit you a lot, and you will animate much more professionally instead of just throwing down keyframes haphazardly and pushing them around. Okay, so I have deleted a couple of the gears, and I have cleaned out all the keyframes, so we're starting fresh for this particular scenario. And let's just make it bob up and down and spin and do all kinds of fun stuff. So first off, let's make it spin, and let's make it spin indefinitely. So if I set a keyframe, and this time instead of doing the dirty way, which is just hitting the S key and polluting the channel box with tons of keyframes, I know at this point in time I just want it to spin on the rotate Y. So let's set some keyframes. So on frame 1, I'm going to right click, key selected, let it start at a value of 0. You'll notice that my graph editor here now popped rotate Y into the channel box here, and there's a keyframe. It's pretty hard to see, it's pretty small, but once we set another keyframe, you'll see another keyframe and a line. Okay, so I'm gonna set a keyframe. I'm gonna change the time slider. Let's just go to like 60, and at 60 I'm going to again change the value to 360. I'm just going to type it in the channel box. Right click, key selected, and you now see that, first of all, oh, by the way, I'm in the graph editor. All the camera controls are the same as the default Maya camera controls, which is Alt and middle mouse, Alt right click, and also the all important F key. Now watch what happens to this curve when I hit the F key. It changes shape quite a bit. I use the F key quite a bit in the graph editor, because even if you think you're zoomed in on something, if you hit the F key, it actually zooms the timeline as well as the values, and it changes the shape of that curve pretty drastically. So you'll see me doing that quite a bit. I'll hit the F key in the graph editor all the time. Okay, so now here you see a keyframe and another keyframe, and you'll notice that there's a curve in between. And not only is it a curve, it's sloping in a particular way. Maya defaults to sloping with an S curve, a spline tangent. Now, a spline tangent means, if you notice, on each keyframe, if I select it, there is tangent handles, and I can actually move those tangent handles. I'm currently moving them with the middle mouse click. I could also click and drag on them with a left click, but I find it easier just to middle mouse click, because then if I miss or if I just tap it, I don't deselect anything. Okay, so I can select a tangent handle and then middle mouse drag it. I can adjust the shape of that curve. Now, this graph editor, left and right, the change in left and right values is time. Left and right is time, up and down is value. So, like I said before, everything you want to animate requires a change in time and a change in value. And that's what this graph is illustrating. So basically, these curves, you could just look at them as acceleration and deceleration. And if you have that curve pointing straight up, or as close to straight up as possible, the farther up that curve points, the faster it's accelerating. The closer that curve is to horizontal, the less change is happening over time. So it's easy to say, it's not as easy to comprehend in terms of watching the animation happen. Realistically, the only way to get really comfortable in this view, in this window, is to just get in here and start animating stuff. And while you're animating, you need to like tug points around while it's moving. That was the easiest way that I found to comprehend what's happening. Okay, so right now we have rotate Y. You'll notice it spins, and then it stops. And at this point, the spline tangent kind of defaults to what looks like a little bit of like an ease in and an ease out, and that is film terminology for it starts out slow, accelerates, speeds up, and then it decelerates before it lands. It just kind of makes the motion a little bit more gentle in terms of speeding up and slowing down. Instead of this, if we grab both of these keyframes and click on this button, which is the linear tangents button, that is going to take the shortest route between 2 points. So it's going to make a straight line between every single keyframe. And you'll notice what happens to the animation if I play it. It plays completely at a linear, constant speed. There's no acceleration or deceleration. It is go and then go at a constant speed until it stops. So that is something to be aware of. These buttons up here are great to play with and get familiar with. This is the default, which is going to be the spline tangents. And then there's the clamped tangents, linear, and then flat tangents. Flat tangents is probably the best way to really smooth things out. And you'll notice the flat tangents got it back to very similar to how it started. It's back to very similar to what Maya defaulted to. There's also stepped tangents. Now, remember what I said a minute ago. If you have a completely horizontal line, that is saying that there is no change in value. And then this completely vertical line means that it is no change of value up until this point, and then suddenly, bam, it immediately teleports to this position. So a step tangent is going to basically, in a manner of speaking, it's going to look like it's teleporting something. In rotate Y, it's not going to really behave that way because this is 0, this is 360. In effect, if this is 0, if this is 0 and this is 360 and it is a step tangent, in effect it's not going to move at all. It won't even move. Even if I scrub the timeline, nothing happens because obviously 0 and 360 in terms of rotation are identical. So anyways, put that back to some tangents there. In fact, I'll just leave it as a linear. Keep the motion pretty steady. And so for that, I'm going to go ahead and loop this now. And in order to loop this, first of all, we want to see what happens as we loop it. So we're going to go to View Infinity. And notice when we click View Infinity, there is a dotted line now coming off of the last keyframe. The dotted line is implying what's going to happen to this animation after it finishes playing. And at this point, horizontal line again means no change in value. It means it's going to stay there. It's going to be static. But let's make it loop so that it'll just spin indefinitely. So curves, post infinity, cycle. Now we have a looping animation that if I just hit play, in fact, let me stretch my timeline out so that you can see what happens. So now if I hit play, notice I'm into the dotted line area, it just keeps spinning indefinitely. And the reason that works again is because a rotation of 360 is the exact same as a rotation of 0. So it's going to spin to 360 and then reset to 0, spin to 360, reset to 0, and just keep looping indefinitely for as long as Maya can keep going. Okay, that is how to loop something. Now that this one is looping, we could easily we could go back and duplicate this and have another one spinning as well. In fact, you know what? Well, let's have fun with this. Let's go ahead and make an interesting scene out of this. So you know what I'm going to do? I haven't keyframed the rotate X yet. Oh, notice the I have my rotation settings apparently to local. So if we go to world, it's going to keep that somewhat normal looking. All right, anyways. So since I haven't keyframed my rotate Z or X yet, I can actually rotate this now, and the animation's still going to play. It's still going to rotate the way that you would expect. It's going to spin on the axes that it meant. Now notice I have a rotate 90 here in my channel box, and rotate, but it's still rotating Y. It looks, if it's rotating Y, you'd think it should be rotating this way, right? Well, it's rotating Y on the axes, the original axes that we had set. If I froze transformations on this right now, then it would go crazy and rotate from the wrong axes and so forth. That's why freezing transformations gets a little bit scary when you've got animation on things. Anyways, so it's still spinning on the axes I meant it to, because I didn't freeze transformations, and this rotate Z value is staying in there. Now if I start keyframing the rotate Z, it could get interesting, but I'm going to leave that alone. I was just thinking, you know what if I put these gears into something? Let's see. Let me just put one here. And now I am going to duplicate this, but what I'm going to do... Yeah, you know what? I'm going to duplicate special on it. Why not? Just for fun. Let me duplicate special. Let me, with duplicate input graph is still turned on from earlier. I'll hit apply. Move this over a bit. Maybe move it up a bit. And back a bit. Just kind of scoot it around until... Ooh, you know what I'll do? Let me just go ahead and create... Let me create a camera. Go ahead and look through that camera. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on view, camera settings, resolution gate, because I want to be able to see the framing that I'm setting up. So I'm going to set this a little bit behind this. Just go ahead, and once I get the framing I like, I'm going to go ahead and lock down the camera. Now, this is pretty handy to know, by the way. If you want to lock down a camera, because that you've chosen a view and you want it to stay there and not accidentally screw up your view, I would recommend doing this. If you go View, select Camera, highlight your channel box values, right-click, and then do Lock Selected. There we go. Lock selected. Now, if I try to move the camera, you'll notice that nothing happens. I've chosen my view. I can unlock it and continue messing with it, but I've chosen my view, and I don't want to mess it up. If I do want to, once I've chosen that view, I can go back into my perspective view if I want, and continue moving around and staging stuff. So first of all, I've duplicated this. You know what? Let me go ahead and scale it as well, because we want to get some variety in these pieces here. And actually, let's just go ahead and finish modeling it a little bit more. Let's go ahead and add some detail. Let me delete this. Okay, again, this is what I was trying to show in class, and that a lot of you guys were panicking because you couldn't keep up. Don't worry about it. I'm just having fun, and if you want to keep up, I will explain it. So I deleted the interior faces like that in face mode. Double click the edge loop, shift right click, extrude edge. Extruding edge is very similar to extrude faces, but I'm just going to drag this until it, pretty much lines up with those back edges to kind of fill that gap. Then I'm going to go back in and highlight all the border edges. And again, I'm not really worried about the fact that it highlighted all those extra edges, because when I shift right click, merge collapse edges, I'm just doing merge border edges anyway. And merge border edges, if I have the threshold at a relatively decent value, it's just going to sew stuff together. It's just going to sew the border edges together. It won't collapse any of these other edges. All right. So we've sewn up the borders, and it's now a solid gear with a hole in it. And if we want, we can put like something else in there to kind of to fill that gap. So I don't know. Let's put a cylinder in there. Let's just create a cylinder, rotate it 90. I'm going to go into my move tool and shove it down in there. And in fact, for once, I'm actually going to use the align tool. So let me grab both of these, modify, snap align objects, align objects option box. Let's just do X, Y, and Z. Cool. All right, good enough. These objects are now aligned. Can scale this up a bit to kind of match that hole. Actually, let's do this. Let's do that. I don't really know if this was even necessary, to be honest. I'm just kind of playing around. Cut an edge loop. Alright, let's just grab these top faces, pinch them down a bit. Alright, and now I'm going to poly combine these, just make a new type of gear. Let's see, what else can I do? I can make all kinds of fun gears. Let me look up some more references. All right. Well, you know what? Let's just go with this for now. Let me get these two going first, and then we'll maybe try some other stuff. Anyway, so here we go. We got these two gears. Oh, we need one. We do need at least one more gear though, because that is the assignment. So let's find something somewhat interesting, maybe slightly different than what I've got already. Alright, this is a little bit different. Similar but different. Okay, let me just start with a cylinder, as you might expect. Always, again, with cylinders, I always try to put on this subdivision caps, because if I don't put on subdivision caps, like these are all quads, these are all triangles in the middle. Triangles are not very friendly. Not exactly what I want usually. Anyways, and in fact, looking at my reference, this, by the way, is the reference I'm looking at. I'm going to try to make something along those lines, just really quickly. Alright, so that's going to be something like let's shrink that down a bit. Bam. Let's do this. Let's extrude edge. Let's just drag it down even through here. And good enough. And then let's do this. So this one, I'm going to drop another edge loop in there. And then these edges, these faces here, I'm going to extrude. But I'm also going to Control Shift right click, toggle key faces together, and that's not achieving quite what I meant it to. Neither is that. Neither is that. Oh, you know what? Oh, I know why. Because I need to do it this way. It's still not exactly ideal, but we can work with it. And I need to stretch it. Let me see if I can do something with the normal. Nope. Nope. Okay. That is not going to work out. So, what are my other options? Okay, I think I have an idea. I think instead, if I wait to extrude until after I give it the angle that I need to create the angle and then extrude the teeth. So what I'm going to do, in fact, I think I just do it this way. I'm going to grab these, actually, and I'm going to extrude them once. But then what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab this edge loop, tug it up a little bit. Oh, that's probably too high. But actually, we'll do this. I'll drag this one down a bit. That looks like close to the right angle. And maybe, yeah, let's just go with that. Okay, now that I've given myself the proper slant to the teeth, I think now I can create the teeth a little bit more easily. I think that should work better. So let's give it a shot. Let's go to extrude, pull it out a bit, but this time again, toggle keep faces together. Let's see if this will shrink appropriately. Not quite right. Actually, that'll do, I guess. Let's just go with that. Good enough. Alright. So now we've got this new shape to play with. Let's shove that one. Let's see, 90 degrees. Oops. Let's go with negative 90. And where shall we put this one? Let's see. Let's take a look back at our camera view. Where does this fit into our composition? Well, okay, remember the rules of contrast. This is a little bit too close to the size of that. Let's make it larger. Okay, good enough. And let's see. Okay, now we still have two spinning, and we want the other one to spin as well. But you know what? Let's do. Let's change the orientation of this one. Let's have it spin in a different direction. So let me grab that one. Okay. Okay, so I lost my animation on this one because I just deleted history and cleaned some stuff off. But let me start that over again. This time though, I do want it to spin the other direction, just for variation. This one's spinning clockwise. Let's have the little one here spin counterclockwise. Okay, so again, I'm going to grab it and let me go back to my perspective view. And I'm going to make sure I'm at frame 1. and set a keyframe, and this time I want the keyframe on rotate X because I did actually freeze transformations on this. So that could get confusing at times. Depending on your local space orientation, things can get really confusing. This one's spinning on the Y, but it's only spinning on the Y because of the rotate Z 90 right here. If I froze transformations, I would have to change the orientation of the animation. Anyways, this is now, I'm animating on the rotate X. I'm going to keyframe as a value of 0 at frame 1. It's a small gear. Let's spin it pretty fast. Let's just go to, I don't know. Let's go to 50 and just see if that's going to be fast enough. Let's go 360 at frame 50. Key selected. It's a little bit faster than the other one. And again, we also want to change the infinity, right? So let's go to curves, post-infinity cycle. And I don't know, I could go linear with this, or I could adjust it and tweak it. In fact, you know what, let's change this to like 40. Let's speed it up even more. Let's see what happens. Alright. And I'm going to leave the interpolation in there. This one's a linear constant one. This one is now kind of ease in, ease out. And I think we'll do something extra weird with the big one. Okay, so we've got some interesting stuff happening. Let's go to the big one. Let's do something with the big one. I'm thinking we're gonna, okay, first of all, we got to start a keyframe somewhere. And again, you know what? Let me just freeze transformations right now. If you're going to freeze transformations, just do it before you actually start animating. That's probably the best, smartest thing to do. So I froze transformations. Now you see all of my values are zeroed out. That way it's a good starting place. I can come back to that place easily. Okay, so now that I've frozen transformations, I'm going to start spinning this. So let me keyframe, rotate X, key selected. And you know what? Let me start I'm going to start a broad move. Let me say, let's go to like frame 200. And oops, first of all, let me set a value. Let's set a value of 360. Then let's go in and key selected. That's going to be a pretty slow moving gear, but I don't want it to just move constantly. I think what I want it to do is kind of tick a little bit, you know. So let's see if I can achieve that. And just so you know, I've never really attempted to make this sort of thing happen before, so bear with me. We'll see what happens. All right, so ticking. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say we set a keyframe, maybe every 10 frames, like roughly every third of a second. Let's set a keyframe. Set another keyframe. Set another keyframe. Let's set another keyframe. I'm just going to go through here and set a keyframe on every 10 frames. Why? Because I have an idea that might work. We will see. And if it doesn't work, I guess we'll try something else. And again, I know it takes a little bit longer to do this by right-clicking on the rotate X. I'm sure there's probably a hotkey that can speed that up, so I don't have to, like, you know, go up to the channel box and click every time. Or I could possibly cut and paste, but I don't necessarily trust the cut and paste, and I don't really know the hotkey. I'm pretty sure. I mean, if you turn caps lock on, you can hotkey. You can use the move, rotate, and scale hotkeys with caps lock on to keyframe each independent thing, like move, rotate, or scale. But then it rotates, or it keyframes all of those channels, X, Y, and Z. I don't really want to keyframe each one. Although I guess I could have done that and then just gone back and broken the connection with each channel, but whatever, I'm done anyway. Okay, so I've set a keyframe on every 10 frames, but you know what I want to do now, just to see if this works. Let me just go in and select every other keyframe. Oops. I'm going to select every other keyframe and just drag it down a little bit. Let's see what happens if I do that. Oh, you know what? Let's make this, maybe let's make this linear as well. Let's see what happens if I do that. And also let's make this curve post infinity cycle. Alright. I think that should work. Well, it's kind of working. But not quite as ticky as I want. Why is that, I wonder? I think I know. Let me just, oops. Here we go. Let me, first of all, let me drag these down a little bit farther so that they're a little closer to even. Yeah, all right, let's try this. Yeah, that kind of works. I could live with that. Although I gotta set this back since I did undo a few times. Let's cycle it again. Alright, it's kind of looking pretty cool, huh? Alright, got some interesting motion happening there. And again, I'm reading this graph, I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, spin a little bit, pause for a second, spin a little bit, pause for a second, spin a little bit, pause for a second. So reading the graph kind of gave me the clue that this might work if I just drag these all down. And again, I think I'm going to try going to linear as well. Although this one looks to be a little bit bent out of shape. And then this one is kind of going the wrong direction. But whatever. I think it might work out just fine. Cool. All right. Let's call that a day. So again, this is the fancier way. I know in class I kind of showed all kinds of crazy stuff, blinking lights and so forth and so on. I think I'm going to save that for another video. I've kind of shown you the graph editor now here in this video and how to push and pull points, adjusting tangent handles. The key for looping, of course, I briefly mentioned as well, which is make sure that your start frame and end frame are the same value. These are the values, by the way, up here. If I select a keyframe, this keyframe here is telling me that at frame 160, the value of the keyframe is 295.573. So I can adjust these. If I want to be really precise, I can type in my values here and adjust these keyframes however I like. And again, if I wanted to like change something, let's say I go back to this one here, rotate X is going this direction. If I wanted to reverse the spin, I wanted it to spin the other direction, all I'd have to do is drag this keyframe down like this. Now it spins the other way. But I like it how it is. So I now have, let me just hide this. In fact, let me get to my camera view. Maybe just move this out of the way. And in fact, I think I will frame this differently. I originally thought of doing a little bit more intricate stuff, but I've already spent enough time, I think, on this now. So let me view, select camera. Let me unlock my camera so I can move it again. Unlock. I'm going to zoom in. Just choose a little bit more interesting framing. Alright. Now, if I hit play, I should have a preview of my interesting stuff. Pretty decent. Nothing exciting. I mean, I was going to put maybe like a watch body around it. I don't know, something like that. So it'd be like the gears in a watch. Or, I mean, a clock, or who knows. Who knows, whatever. But the gears are all spinning. They're spinning in different directions. They're spinning in different speeds. And this one, this is the fancy one. This one not only spins at a different speed, but it also ticks and like it, ticks a bit, pauses, ticks a bit, pauses. So that is clearly a more interesting motion. This is the kind of thing that I would definitely grade well if you had more variation in your motion. Again, especially since this is an animation exercise, not a modeling exercise, put more interesting motion into your file. Okay. Again, I'll try at some point to crank out another one of these videos and just kind of go over a little bit more in depth of animation. But for now, this is good enough. This definitely would get you a better grade than the quick and dirty way. Especially if I open your file and see that you don't have a channel box just lit up from hitting the S key constantly. Because remember, the more keyframes you have, the more it's going to choke a game engine. I wouldn't worry about it. I doubt you would ever get to the point at this point of choking a game engine with too many keyframes, because you guys aren't animated characters. But just so you're aware, keep it clean. Just use the number of keyframes that you need to get the job done, and also, by the way, it's a lot easier to manipulate the graph editor when there's not a ton of curves and lines and points. Because watch what happens if I hit the S key. Look at all these values here. There's a ton of curves in here now, and when you animate these curves and things are happening all over the place, that's when it's really confusing and hard to understand the graph editor. That's why if you keep it simple, isolate one channel at a time, just look at that. Oh, I'm just looking at the rotate Y. I'm just spinning it. That's all I need to worry about. Then it's a lot easier to comprehend. Okay, hopefully that gives you guys enough to play around and make whatever you need to make, and impress me enough to get a better grade. All right. Good luck, and I will see you guys in class.